Hi, everybody, and welcome to the CBA's D.I.C.E program, Women's Archive Project. I am honored to have Dean Nicky Boothe here from the U.I.C. Law School. Welcome, Dean Boothe.
Thank you so much. So nice to be here, Ashley. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So this is an archive project that we keep in our archives, and we have a lot of prominent women here. So we're very honored to have you. I just want to talk about D.I.C.E for a minute. D.I.C.E stands for diversity, equity, inclusion, and culture. And so everyone's already talked about diversity a lot. I feel like it's almost talked to, ad nauseum. So I want to discuss culture a little bit with you because there's all different types of culture. And I know that you are from Jamaica.
I am.
And I love that. I'm an immigrant as well. We don't need to talk about what country, but I love the immigrant experience, and I think that that brings a lot to you and to what you're doing here.
Sure.
So why don't you tell us what you feel that is how has it helped you in your career?
Oh, sure. Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. It's really informed a lot about what I've done in my career and why I am at the point in my career where I am. As you mentioned, I was born in Jamaica. I was fortunate enough to grow up in, a traditional household. Both my parents and my parents had secondary education, so that was very beneficial to me. So education was always a big thing in Jamaica. One of the things I did not realize when I was growing up in Jamaica, I was there till I was almost 13, was that it's when you talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and culture, it's a very kind of classist society. They're kind of the haves and the have-nots, and a lot of the divisions are based on educational ability. And I don't think I was as aware of that until I was a little bit older. And it struck me that it was uncomfortable for me that there was any kind of disparity. So I was kind of aware of that type of disparity at a young age. And then when we moved to the United States and we went to New York, I went to New York, went to high school in New York. And that was the first time I was faced with racism. So then again, I was aware of another type of disparity that I hadn't been exposed to before, different inequities for, reasons that I thought were unreasonable, why there should be any inequities. And so I started at a young age, really being interested in doing what I could to make sure that there weren't disparities in situations, whether it was in my friend groups or in the conversations that we had or in organizations that I was involved in when I went to college. So that has kind of been the core of what I do. And I feel the same way very strongly, of course, about the legal profession and doing what we can to ensure that there is diversity and equity in the legal profession, starting, of course, in law schools, pipeline programs leading to law schools, and then how we assist our communities to try to relieve some disparities in society. So the culture helped me in that sense. The other thing that culture helped me with, coming from a small island, there is a lot of island pride, though. So there's always been this sense of being very proud and appreciative of where you're from and what you do, no matter where you go. So even if I went to a school, I was very into school pride, whatever that was for, my undergraduate or my law school or my children's schools. And then with the institutions that I've been involved with, I think it's really important for people to have pride and appreciation for where they are, where they're coming from. If you're talking about young lawyers, I think it's important for me to do whatever I can to embed in our students a pride in having done the work to get here to this amazing law school, but then to just have the opportunity to do something with that and be proud of UIC law and go out and make some big changes. So culture has had those types of influences that really kind of guide my day-to-day living and operation in this position.
Great answers. So I don't want to waste our time because we have very limited time, but if anyone wants to look up Dean Nicky's bio, you're more than welcome to do that. But briefly, she came from University A&M, Florida, correct?
Florida A&M University.
Florida A&M. And she was an interim dean there, also faculty and taught law school, as well as a defense litigator. So I do want to talk about your litigation experience as well, because to me, just for full disclosure, I was on the Dean Selection Committee, and it was very important to me to have somebody, when we talk about diversity, to be diverse in all types of areas, thought and experience, career. And so it was important that somebody had real life experience. So can you talk about your real life experience as a defense litigator and what that's brought to you as dean here?
Sure. And I fully agree with you. I think it's helpful and it's almost necessary in some sense for the leader of the law school to have some understanding of all the different aspects of what that means to our students. So of course, we've all been law students, but then what are our students going to do when they graduate? And so I have, that lawyer experience, that actual practical litigation experience. And then of course I was an educator, as you mentioned, for almost 2 decades. And then I've got the administrative experience, but then I also know the importance of scholarly work. So I have the scholarly experience that can make me empathize and sympathize and understand, faculty requirements. So I'm really, really glad that I had those opportunities in life to have that diversity of experience. But it's important for me to have had the practice experience because that informed how I teach, how I write. And of course, the skills that I learned as a litigator helped me with doing things like public speaking and communicating with people. So all these other types of interpersonal skills, I did learn a lot of those through litigation. So as you mentioned, I did defense litigation for just about 10 years. And the first part of my career, so I went to law school saying that I wanted to be a sports lawyer. My major was in exercise and sports sciences. And then when I got to law school, not really understanding what that even meant, excuse me, I realized that, attorneys who were in the sports field were doing mostly contract negotiations and more kind of transactional work. And I wanted to go to court. So I just wanted a job. I didn't know what kind of job, but I did know that I wanted to litigate. And I was fortunate enough to get with a company that was a small law firm. I was the only woman who was a lawyer there. I was the only lawyer who was a person of color. There was one other woman in the office, a paralegal, who was a Black woman. So it was an interesting environment for me to start my litigation background. And I had not done something that I should have done. I should have taken a clinic in law school so that I had some experience. My work experience was doing work for the Department of I can't remember the name of the acronym, but we reviewed medical professional regulation. So we reviewed, complaints for medical malpractice, those types of things, but I was not doing actual litigation. So I had no litigation background. And I remember working for the law firm, waiting for my bar scores back in the day when they came in the mail, not how they find out now, and going home at lunchtime, getting the mail, going back to work, saying, hey, I passed the bar. They said, that's fantastic. Take the rest of the day off. And the next morning coming in saying, listen, I need you to do 2 depositions and argue a motion hearing. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I was really thrown into a life of litigation. And it was interesting, but I really enjoyed it. It really helped hone a lot of skills that I was trying to develop, my leadership skills and my speaking skills and my analytic skills that I had learned in law school. It was a challenge because I was a newlywed at the time. So there was a challenge with that work-life balance. I had all 3 of my children. Now I think about it, all 3 of my children while I was still litigating. By the time my first child was 3 years old, I was fortunate enough to then go to a firm for the remainder of my litigation career where I was able to work 4 days a week. So that helped well. But I loved the courtroom. I loved the impact that I was making. I loved getting prepared for cases. But teaching was way more rewarding than winning lawsuits for big, large companies. It was more impactful to see, to me, it was more gratifying to see the impact I could make in the lives of others. And so started my career in academia.
Well, I mean, and that's great. So, I've met you a few times, and what I love about you, you are so comfortable speaking, and it seems like it just comes so easy to you. Was it always easy to you, or is that something that the litigation experience helped you with?
I think maybe I had a natural affinity to being talkative. In fact, when we were in school in Jamaica, I used to get in trouble a lot. I used to get in trouble for talking in class. I'd finish the work, get bored, and then I want to talk about something. So I think I had a natural affinity for it, but there's absolutely no question that being a litigator really honed those skills, right? Made me very thoughtful, much more thoughtful about what I was saying instead of just, as they would say when I was younger, running my mouth. To be very thoughtful about what I'm saying and to really try to come from a place of authenticity and truth and integrity in everything that I say. And so the litigation really, really helped me along that path. So I have to credit it to those experiences for sure.
That's great because, I know that, I'm an adjunct professor there and I teach a litigation class and I see that the young people, they sometimes struggle with litigation just maybe because of the devices and we have so much time to formulate our thoughts on the devices rather than be confrontational. So what would you say to them as far as dipping their feet in the water of litigation?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's almost more difficult for this generation because they haven't grown up in a society where they've had to do a lot of face-to-face communication, right? They do everything, most of all their communication is very electronic. And even though we do have electronic discovery and so forth, the interpersonal nature of litigation, I don't think is ever going to go away. And so I would just tell them to just push beyond those fears, to do things that I remember doing when I was in law school, when I was, say, preparing for moot court, and talk to yourself in the mirror. Record yourself. Now they have their cell phones and so forth. Record yourself, listen to how you sound, look at how you're doing. One of the things that I continue to struggle with is I talk a lot with my hands. I'm always gesticulating and I try to be really conscious of it, but it's really just part and parcel of who I am. But I became conscious of it by watching myself, recording myself, say, why are your hands all in your face and everywhere else? But I would just tell them that it will be so beneficial to them if they take this time while they have the opportunity to learn in a safe space in the classroom. It's going to be tremendously beneficial to them, not just as a practicing lawyer, but just in their life in general. Because we all know you become a member of the bar and your communities and your societies look to you for leadership, and you have to be able to articulate your ability to serve as a leader in those situations. So it'll be so beneficial to them if they just push through and focus on the lessons that you're teaching them. You have the experience, the background. They should pay attention to what you're teaching them and really just grow from that.
Definitely. And also they might be the only lawyer in the family or amongst their friends and they might be asked to step up in a hearing and you never know when you need the litigation skills. So speaking of that, I know that are you the first lawyer in your family?
So my aunt was married to what used to be called I don't know if they still call him a barrister because it was in England. So I am the first person definitely in my immediate family. I do have a distant cousin who also did some international law many years ago, but it was a completely different experiences from what I had, and I didn't really have somebody who was guiding me through law school, and I just knew of them being lawyers, but not really even understanding the process. I don't even think I realized I needed to take the LSAT till maybe close to my senior year in college, even though in my head I was always saying, well, I really love the sciences, but I don't like to see things pierce flesh. So med school is out. So I'm going to law school, but I didn't really have a lot of guidance, kind of had to find my way and didn't understand about the opportunities that a JD degree gives you, which is why it's really important to me to make sure our students are exposed to all the different opportunities you can do with the degree. It's probably one of the most transferable degrees you can get in society. And I want to make sure our students know that. I didn't know about clerkships. I didn't know about, the way to go about on-campus interviewing. And I knew about none of those things. But thankfully, I had really good support while I was in law school. There were a number of us who were kind of trying to lead each other around, but help each other through law school. And then good support once I got to law school for the people that I wasn't afraid to talk to, because I was one of those people that was very afraid to go speak to my professors in office hours. And I always said, I'll never be that professor that my students are afraid to come and speak to me. But yeah, it was challenging, but with support, that's why I know with support, anybody can do it. So
Yes. And then you did set up a program at the school, a mentor-mentee program for first generation lawyers, which I think is really important because I was that as well. And I went to UIC Law School and I would have loved that program because I think it is so important to have mentors.
It is critically important. And that's one of the reasons I'm really excited about being a member of the Chicago Bar Association, because it gives me the opportunity to interface with other members in the legal community who I know could be tremendous mentors for our students. Our students come from such a diversity of backgrounds and, socioeconomic and culturally, and just their stories that have brought them to this place for this opportunity. And they could really use the mentorship of somebody who has been where they currently are in different ways, in different capacities, because they have so much potential. And I think that mentorship is extremely important in how somebody is successful, because in addition to giving advice and providing support, it's another measure of accountability. And when students have accountability outside of themselves, a lot of times it pushes them, drives them to success. So yes, the mentorship is key. So I'm really, really happy that you're participating in that. And there are lots of other members from the Chicago Bar Association that are also.
Yes, definitely. And so I'm always interested in motivation. So we talked a little bit about how, UIC Law School is a place where we give people second chances or third chances to try to, get everything together and go to law school. But you have to be ready for the opportunity and take advantage of it. What would you say drives you? What is your motivation to succeed? And you've done so many different areas, and I noticed that you're a person who says yes more than no. And so how has that shaped you?
Oh, geez. It probably isn't the best thing for me, but I just love people. I love people and I love to see people succeed. I get such euphoria from seeing the success of other people. And it doesn't even have to be like big, large scale successes, but whatever is success for a person, to just see people relish in those kind of emotions and opportunities gives me all the motivation I need every day. So to be here at a law school where, students come in, some of them who this is the one opportunity they had to make this dream that they have a reality, and to see the light bulbs coming on and off, even though, law school is stressful and there are, of course, issues and so forth and so on, but overall, and then to see them succeed is tremendously motivating to me. And so it's critically important that I make sure I do whatever I can to provide that access and opportunity to as many students. One of the things that I'm really interested in doing is making sure that students in the community, not just UIC undergraduate community, but children, not just high school, but starting K through 12, to expose them to the potential opportunities of law. Because I think a lot of times if children don't see someone who looks like them or sounds like them doing something that they might not even know about, they never even realize that they too can aspire to do that. And so that's one of the motivating factors for me. And being a dean really gives me a platform to be able to do that, to speak to different groups, different socioeconomic groups, cultural groups, whatever it is. But it really gives me a platform to do that and have a team that's committed to also doing that also. So that's really my motivation. And then, I have my own children, and I'm always concerned about the type of role model I am for my children. So I'm going to always try to do things in the spirit of excellence so that they too can try to aspire. Always want the children to be better than you were, of course. But I think those would probably my primary motivations. It's just wanting to help people be their best selves.
And that's great. And not everyone is as fortunate as you or me that has a support system. So I think we're back to the mentorship, where if they don't have that support system, it's a great place to go to find other people. They don't have to be in your family to be supportive of you.
Absolutely.
So, and then that brings me to networking, because I know that is something that's important to you too. Can you talk about that? Because I don't know if the next generation really understands the value of networking and how it can help you propel.
Absolutely. My first job out of law school was because of a relationship, a friend of my then fiance, right? It was all about who kind of, and where you want to go. And so, of course, you have to have your credentials, you have to be prepared, you have to do the hard work. But I would say that a significant percentage of employment opportunities are born out of a network, are born out of relationships. People want to engage with those who they know something about other than on a piece of paper. And so networking becomes really critical, especially for a law student who has aspirations to do whatever it is, big law, public service, community work, whatever it is. You have to be involved in those networks and you have to partake in those opportunities to get to know people. I'm not saying you have to go and have Sunday dinner with them every single Sunday, but it's important to know that there are people in the arena that you want to practice, which would be the practice of law for our law students, that you can call on if you have a question, or if, when you do get ready to look for a job, who might not have an employment opportunity for you there, but may have a lead for you. And because they have that personal connection with you, then you have the ability to move forward. So the networking is critically important. And then also not just taking from the network, but contributing to the network, right? Not just having these support systems, but what are you also giving back to this relationship in this network? Is it your own expertise? Is it, conversation? Is it opportunity? Whatever it is. And I think a lot of times law students feel that they don't have anything to offer. And so they don't want to get involved in situations where there are people who they think have everything, and then they as a law student have nothing to offer. And I think it's important for students to know, and for members of the bar to both know, that there is a reciprocal benefit to these types of relationships, because quite frankly, those of us who have experience, we're always willing to share it. And it helps us to share it and to talk through it sometimes, and to provide some type of support and input, even if it's just through conversation. So it's beneficial to sit with a law student, maybe even if it's just to reminisce about how our time was in law school. So it's very beneficial both ways. And I really encourage our students to participate. The CBA has events or other events that are law student friendly, to do that and really stress to them the importance of networking early.
And then, we talk about networking, we talk about mentorship, and then role models. I know it's the standard question, who is your role model? But I'm going to ask you something a little bit different. Was there ever not a role model, but somebody that you saw that you said, I do not want to be like this, I am going to go another way, or that motivated you to be a better person because of their action?
So because I love people, I'm always paying attention to how people move, is what I call it. Like, how do you move? I am not usually very impressed. I'm really not impressed with titles. I am impressed with people who display leadership skills, not because they have a title, but how they interact with people, how they fulfill their responsibilities and their obligations. So I'm always paying attention to people and always trying to see what I can learn from somebody. I always want to truly be my authentic self, which I think is really important for all of us, but we can still learn from other people. So I always pay attention. And of course, then when you pay attention, like you said, you see different things. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that. And I don't want to do that. I have to tell you, I was the 7th dean at Florida A&M University in the 18 years that I was there, which meant that there were 6 deans before me. And so I was able to, even though I wasn't thinking about a life of a dean, I'm always thinking about, how can I be a better person today? And so I would pay attention to different things that the leaders in my institution would do. And so I learned from those. I'd say, well, these were really good skills. I really like the way, this dean was very kind of transparent about things that were going on in the law school, very kind of communicative with the staff, made sure that, the staff understood their importance. But I really didn't like how this dean just seemed to keep everything under cover, or wasn't very, sociable, whatever it was. So certainly there were some deans that I would say, I'll never be like that, right? But learn from the ones who not only I may have admired, but I realized that they were impactful in the institution, and try to kind of hone my own skills to kind of be kind of aligned with those same values. So certainly, yes, there were people that I said, not like that.
And I think that sometimes that's just as important when you see as well. Okay, so I know I'm conscious of the time, so I have some quick, fun, rapid fire questions. But before we do that, is there anything, final remarks that you want to say, or any goals you have for the future of the law school, or yourself, or otherwise, that you want to share?
Oh gosh, and you asked me to do that. Then I always have great goals and great visions. So I'll have to try to summarize really quickly that I just think it's just a tremendous opportunity to be here in Chicago, right? To be here at UIC Law, which is a phenomenal law school. I think has some of the best students that I've ever met, but just to be a part of the Chicago Bar and part of this really kind of vibrant cultural and legal environment is a tremendous benefit to me. I'm anticipating and hoping that we'll be able to have different centers here at the law school. I'm going to really push hard on philanthropic needs because we have so many students who are in need in various ways. And I want to be able to meet those needs, whether it's for scholarship purposes, not just when they are being admitted, but to kind of retain them and give them the support that we need, which means that we need to build our faculty and our internal staff support. So it's going to take resources. So I'm really going to try to focus on that. And then UIC itself is branding itself as a social justice university. And it makes sense for who we are and where we are, especially logistically here in the city of Chicago, to also start thinking about the law school as being a social justice law school and really making impacts and trying to remedy some disparities in our society. We already have faculty and students doing amazing work in that realm. It's just a matter of kind of packaging it right and branding it and doing the work that it takes to really make an impact. But I think things are really exciting here and there's so much possibility and opportunity. I'm really optimistic about really great things for UIC Law.
Well, we're very lucky to have you, and we're looking forward to all those things that you talked about. And all of us are willing to help you with that. So call upon us.
I sure appreciate that.
Yes, of course. So really quickly, just some rapid fire fun questions. So we know you're from Florida. So you came here to Chicago. What's your favorite Chicago food?
Oh,
so far?
I should say pizza, but pizza. Because pizza.
You don't have to, but okay, pizza. What about music?
Oh, I like all kinds of music. Everything but like hard rock. So, yeah.
Okay. And do you have a favorite Kardashian?
It depends on it depends if I'm looking at her hair or her makeup. They're so interesting to me. The whole family is. So I don't have a favorite. No. Okay.
And what about your worst job?
Oh, I used to sell septic tank cleaner over the phone. And I'd have to call people. Some people had used it before, but then some people, it was the first time I was trying to sell them all over the country. This was when I was in college one summer. I had to try to sell them septic tank cleaner. And that was the worst job.
It's very specific.
That's all we sold.
And on the phone. I mean, that sounds really hard. Okay. What about superpower? If you could have a superpower, would it be flying, being invisible, or whatever else you think?
Oh, I think it would be flying. I love to see the full picture of everything. And I like to get like a bird's eye view of things. So I would love to just fly and just observe, because I love to be observant either and learn all kinds of fun things. That would be wonderful.
That would be fun. Okay, and then favorite city. I know you've been in Boston, Orlando, Chicago. This is kind of a trick question.
It depends on what time of year it is. Chicago is amazing in the summer. It's really amazing in the summer. But, Miami, Fort Lauderdale are really fun in the winter and the fall also. So
okay, that's very diplomatic. You haven't had a Chicago winter yet, though.
No. So I came and visited a couple times during the winter, but not to, live and find my way home and back. So we'll see. You might have to check on me in January and February. Right.
And then what is something surprising, last question, something surprising about you that we would not suspect or think about you?
Oh, wow. I don't know if it would be surprising. I used to be a professional cheerleader. You know what might be surprising? I love old cars. And I think I know like a little bit about mechanics and things. So when I go to get my cars fixed, they're not just talking to the little lady that brought her car and like, show me the rotor that you're saying is to cut and what, let me see.
That would be surprising. I love it too. I love the antique cars. Absolutely love it. So no, that's great. So on behalf of CBA, the D.I.C.E Committee, and the Women's Archive Project, we really thank you for your time. We're honored that you spent this time with us, and we look forward to all the projects that you have in store in the future.
Thank you so much. It was quite an honor. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for a wonderful interview.
Thank you. Thank you.